Lawmakers fighting for free speech and calling out big tech's double standard after Twitter banned President Trump from the platform, yet allows dictators to remain online.
Here to discuss, South Carolina's GOP Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Good morning, Congresswoman.
Hey, good morning, and thank you for having me on today.
Well, we're glad to have you. Tell us about this seemingly obvious double standard here. And it's not just Iran's Ayatollah. Twitter's choices on who and who not to censor, to suppress, seems to be obvious. So what is guiding their principle right now? Who are they choosing, and why are they choosing certain individuals whose voices cannot be heard?
Well, obviously, as you mentioned earlier, it's the height of hypocrisy. Twitter is a private company. We need to acknowledge that. And they have rules and standards, but they need to be clear and they need to be consistent in the way that they apply them. I mean, to ban the president of the United States for his language is one thing, but then to allow, let's say, the Chinese government, who just 2 days ago called for genocide against the Uyghurs online on Twitter, and the account is still up, the tweet is still up. If you look at Iran's supreme leader calling for terrorist attacks on the U.S. and its allies, they can still tweet. And so if Twitter is being completely hypocritical on the issue, and quite frankly, it's un-American.
Congresswoman, to ban the President of the United States is one thing. I was talking to my son last night. He said, Dad, how in the world do you ban the President of the United States? And I think we miss the obvious question sometimes, how absurd it really is. My question is Twitter an American company? Do they put American interests first, or do they just benefit from capitalism and our free markets, and then they're happy to allow tin pot dictators to do what they do?
Well, I mean, certainly they're benefiting from Ayatollahs being online, threatening U.S. citizens, threatening our allies, threatening our military, threatening terrorist attacks on the United States and our allies. It's incredibly un-American, and it is so hypocritical. And to be going through all the pain that our nation is facing right now, we've been through enormous pain over the last 5.5 days, and it sort of feels like you're throwing gasoline on the fire. And it's very sad. I'm sad for our country. I've been very strong in my remarks this week, really focused on our party. But really, at the end of the day, when we look at the last 9 months, all of this happening online on both sides of the aisle, particularly the violence by Antifa thugs, none of it, a lot of it being coordinated online and on social media. And we've got to make the right decision starting today, going forward, that we can't let these voices of violence take over anymore. And you see it on Twitter, you see the hypocrisy, and it's really sad. I feel sad for my children, and I feel sad for my country.
Yeah, it is very sad. Important to note, we reached out to Twitter for a statement. We have not heard back as of yet. Congresswoman, I want to switch over to another really important topic, obviously, which is that you are among a group of GOP House lawmakers. You're urging Joe Biden to get Nancy Pelosi to drop the impeachment push. And the reason I think this is interesting from your perspective is because you didn't object to the election results. Right. You faced your own degree of harassment as a result, and yet you are someone that is still saying, no, impeachment may not be the right thing to do here. Why is that?
Well, if you look at right now, there are still political charades going on. And I think it's very disingenuous in the last 10 days of President Trump being in office. He only has 10 more days. And to see the Democrats taking advantage of what happened last week and politicizing it and making the last 10 days, it's like throwing gasoline on the fire. And I just think we really need to focus on having a very peaceful transition of power. I think the president's decision to forego the inauguration was the right one. People shouldn't be worried about going to an event or going to work and with the threat of violence or fear that they might be harmed. I had to have a conversation with my children on Friday night that just because mommy goes to work in D.C. doesn't mean that my life is going to be in danger every time I go. These are very tough discussions to have with my children. But we need to focus on unity. We need to focus on taking responsibility for what happened on Wednesday, but also what happened over the last 9 months. This is not the first violent event this year. We've seen destruction all across the country, in cities all across the country, cities being burned to the ground, businesses being burned down, all in the middle of COVID. And so we've really got to think long and hard about how we go from here, both Republicans and Democrats.
Absolutely. Congresswoman Nancy Mace, thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.